What's up guys, Heiko here with the Saltwater Fishing Channel, and today we're going to talk a bit about reels. I get a lot of questions about what reels do I use, what's a good cheap reel to use, what's a good beginner reel to use, and what I like to use offshore and inshore. So I was going to clean my reels today, and then while I was getting started I thought, oh, I might as well answer all these questions. So in this video I'm going to show you the reels that I use, the reels that I've liked and didn't like. I'm going to show you my rods. I'm going to show you how I clean and maintain my reels, how to set up a full rod and reel combo, and then get ready to do some fishing. Oh, by the way, if you want to win some of these toadfish rods or any really cool fishing gear, check out my website at southfloridaFishingChannel.com, and from there you can enter my giveaway where every month I give away cool stuff like fishing rods or GoPros. Oh, and also I take my winners fishing, so that's another perk. So tomorrow I'm planning on going paddleboard fishing here in the river, and I wanted to set up a new rod. I was taking a look at all my rods and I decided to take the reels off all of them because some of my rods were broken. You guys have been asking what kind of reels I recommend you buy, and you know, higher end versus lower end reels. So I'm just going to give you the feedback that I have on the reels I've been using. I've caught a lot of fish on all of these reels. If you've seen my older videos, I've caught mahi on these two particularly, and these have caught mahi too. I've caught big mud and snapper on all these reels. If he's gonna ruin my day, I'm gonna ruin his day, and I can use him for bait so he can make up for the fish he just stole from me. One-handed monster gaff. Ugh. Oh, I think it's a grouper. A monster mutton snapper. Yeah, boys! Yeah, that's what happens when you go to the right spots. You know, big 7-foot, 8, 9-foot nurse sharks horsed them in on these reels, so they can take quite a pounding. And the funny thing is, I actually didn't realize this, but all of my reels are Penns. People always ask me what brand I use, and I just tell them, you know, I like Shimano, I like Daiwa, I like Penn. I like all these mid-range reels, but I actually didn't realize that I have all Penns. I mean, I have Shimano trolling reels. I have the Daiwa electric reel, which I love. So really what I'm trying to figure out is, which reel do I want to use on the paddleboard? And since I'm on a paddleboard and I'm going to be going through mangroves and stuff, I didn't want to use a very large rod, so I'm probably going to stick with a 6-foot rod. Maybe a 6'8" rod. With that rod, I want a light reel. So I was thinking, which one should I pick? And so I thought, oh, why don't I make a video? Drinking some late night coffee to help me with this. I think they're in the $60 range. I know the Penn Fierce, this one here goes for about $70. And I think they're all about the same range, and I suggest getting like these mid-range reels. A lot of people send me links to like $30, $25, $30, $40 reels, and from my experience, every time I've had a cheap reel, they always end up seizing up. So I've had this reel, this Penn Fierce 4000. I've had this reel for probably 4 years now, and it works great. All these reels work great still, and I really pound them out. I mean, these two are a little newer. This is actually my ex-girlfriend's reel that when she was moving out, I was pretty much like, you don't need this. So I bought this off of her for a good price. I was with her when she bought this, so I was like, this is a good one. Bought this one that same day actually. That was about 2.5 years ago, and I've taken this one out on my boat at least 50 times offshore, I would say, at least. So if you want to get a reel that's kind of a good price, you know, under $100, these Penn reels have really performed well for me. So this is the Penn Fierce 4000, and this is I believe, a 5-ball bearing. Yeah, this is a 5-ball bearing. This is also a 5-ball, and then these two are 6 balls. So these are slightly more heavy duty, or at least this one. You can tell that the Penn Spinfisher is much bigger than the Penn Fierce. All of these reels come in completely different sizes. So the Penn Fierce, this is the 4000. There's also the 1000, the 2000, the 2500, the 3000, the 4000, the 5000, the 6000, and the 8000. So these are all the sizes that these reels come in. And normally, if I'm on a paddleboard, I would rather have a smaller reel, but these are the only ones I have. So I'm going to go with this mid-ranged reel size. The thing I like about mid-range reel size, if you're new to fishing and you only really have so much money to buy maybe 1 or 2 rods, I would get this mid-size, because you can catch bass in freshwater ponds on this thing all day long, or you can go offshore and catch a mid-size mahi by pitching it a live bait from a boat, and you'll be able to handle it on this reel. If you do end up going offshore, if you plan on doing a lot of offshore fishing and you still want a rod to like bass fish with, and you can only buy one, this is probably the one you want right here. This is the Penn Battle 2. Alright, I put my camera up on a tripod here so I can kind of go a little more into these reels. So a couple hours ago, I was actually, these 2 reels were kind of covered in sand because I was fishing on the beach earlier, and so I just got the sand off of them, and I was actually going to clean them. So I'll show you here in a second how I'm going to clean these with some WD-40 and some grease. Cleaning them, I would say, is something good to do at least maybe once a year. Some people will say clean them all the time. Some people hardly ever clean them. Some people never clean them. But I suggest cleaning them at least once a year, and then these things will last you. I mean, these 2 reels I've had for, I think, close to 10 years. I've had them for at least 6 or 8 years, you know. They're super smooth action. The drag on them works great, and it's smooth. I actually tested the drag on all these reels before I took them off the rod by pulling line out, just to make sure they're all still good, and they're all flawless, beautiful. And this is after heavy use. So if you're looking for a good reel in the like $50 to $70 range, these Penns are really good. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Shimano or Daiwa reels, but I just realized I have all Penns, and I actually have a lot of Shimano reels, but they're actually not. They're all the TLD 20s and 25s for trolling. I did have a Daiwa spinning reel about this size, the mid-range size, like the 3000, 4000 size, and it ended up seizing up on me, so I don't know what was up with that. So the whole point of me laying these out was to find out which one am I going to take paddleboard fishing. I wanted the lightest one that's going to give me the best performance. All the drag works really well on all of them, so that's not a factor. I would say this drag might be the smoothest, but just barely. You can't really tell. They all have, I think, 30-pound Power Pro on them, so the line's not a factor either. So then I was gonna say which one's the smoothest, but they all are super smooth. None of them have any kind of sticking issues or seem like they're having issues. So they all seem smooth. So it kind of comes down now, what I think is down to which one is the lightest. What do you know? I got a scale right here. If I had to take a wild guess, I'm going to say this one's the heaviest because it's got that beefier build to it. It's got 6 ball bearings, while these two only have 5 ball bearings. But this one right here also has 6 ball bearings, and it's smaller, and it has the same size line on it. So I'm thinking this might be a pretty good runner-up here. So let's weigh this Spinfisher V4500. I mean, this is definitely the biggest reel that I have out of these little Spinfishers in the mid-size range. So we can see it's about 17 ounces. That goes over here. Now we're gonna measure the Penn Fierce 4000. Coming in at 14 ounces. There we go. Here's the Penn Fierce 4000. I just realized that these two are exactly the same reel. It's just there's different color line on them. They're both Penn Fierce 4000s. I just realized that. Wow. So I'm guessing this one weighs 14 ounces. Yeah, 14 ounces. Okay, and then the Penn Battle 2. 13 ounces. Yeah, this might actually make kind of a nice thumbnail for the video right here. Wonder if I'll end up using that. So this bad boy right here, the Penn Spinfisher V4500, is obviously the biggest reel. These are all 4000s. This is obviously the biggest one, which is probably also why it weighs more than the others. It's also the 6 ball bearing. Let me just show you what I mean by bigger versions. So this is the Spinfisher V4500. This is the 6500. In the last video I posted, this is the reel that I caught those kingfish on. See, it's got the stinger rig on it, which is a great rig for kingfish. And then this big boy right here is the V8500, which I have on this 2-piece rod, which is a real big rod for the beach, and I use this for shark fishing. So you could see how this is like the mid-size range, the 4500s. It goes down to the 3000, 2000, 1000, so they get really small, and they also get really big. If you only have enough money to buy one reel, I highly suggest getting something mid-range that can handle both offshore and your inshore fishing. If you can afford two, I would get something like a 3000 or a 2000, so about half the size of this reel, and then I would get the 6500 for offshore. So then you would have a pretty beefy rod for offshore, and then you would have a much smaller reel for either freshwater or river fishing. It's good to have a combo. I think that this reel is amazing, but for fishing in the river off of a paddleboard tomorrow, I think it might be a little too beefy, so I'm gonna pass on this one. However, if I'm gonna run offshore, this is usually my to-go-to one. So this is a great reel for pitching live bait at Mahi or something if you want some real light action and some real fun. By the way, if you want to watch my paddleboarding fishing video, I'll be posting that tomorrow. And if you're new to this channel, this is the South Florida Fishing Channel, and I post fishing or hunting videos every Tuesday between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can always count on me to bring you some fishing videos, and I try to make them as educational as possible. Here in a second, I'm about to show you how I clean these reels, and then, yeah, and I'll show you the rest of my setup. I'm going to be sticking my reel of choice on a rod here in a second too, and explain a little bit about the rod that I use. The Penn Fierce 4000 weighs 14 ounces, so it's just a touch heavier than the Penn Battle, but I remember that the Penn Battle 2 3000, it's a little bit lighter because this is the 3000 and not the 4000. So if you were to get the Penn Fierce 3000 version of this reel, it would probably weigh the same as this, but this is the 6 ball bearing reel, this bad boy right here. So it should be a little bit smoother, and the drag should be a little bit better, and it should be able to handle more of a fight. And since it's also lighter, that's actually what I'm looking for. So I have decided this is the reel that I'm going to be using tomorrow, and that it's perfect for the river. It's perfect for those mid-sized fish. I can land a 16-inch trout on this just as easily as I could land a 30-inch snook. I mean, the snook, you know, you kind of have to finesse it a bit more, but this thing will be able to handle pretty much anything I'm going to run into out there tomorrow. So why don't we go ahead and clean this bad boy, because part of the secret to keeping these rods from being so smooth and from lasting so long is maintenance. And now you really don't need to clean your rods and reels all the time. Usually after a couple uses, or if it's a really intense use, like if I go offshore and it gets completely drenched in salt water, I'll give it a good little rinse with some water, but that's all about I do is just a little bit of water. So, and then maybe once a year, I'm actually going to take the thing apart, add a little bit more grease, and give it a little WD-40 coating. I think a good rule of thumb is if you're trying to figure out when you actually have time to clean your rods, maybe once a year, a good time to do it is Thanksgiving, when all your family is in town, and you know, you're going a little crazy. You have a great excuse to leave and go to the garage, which is you got to clean all your reels. Tell your family if you don't do this, they're going to rust and you're going to lose a bunch of money. So it's a great excuse to go to the garage and do this. But the first thing that we want to do is give it a light spray with WD-40. And you want to take off your line, because if you get WD-40 on your fishing line, you'll see that oil slick every time you cast on the water, and it's, I don't know, I think it's just not good to have. Some people claim that it puts a scent in the water. That's not good for fishing. So that just pops right off. You can see in there, there's a little bit of gunk up in there. Looks like a little bit of sand. You can see I have a little bit of sand too, just kind of inside of there. Nothing too serious, but definitely you don't want to leave that in there forever. So put this away somewhere where it's not going to get sprayed. Before I spray some WD-40 on this bad boy, I'm just going to take a little paper towel and kind of just get the sand out of there. That's just me blowing into it. That'll get the sand out. There's a few sand crumbs under here too, not much. I'll just give them a couple blows. Just about got all the sand out of here. Alright, if you notice, as I reel, the shaft moves up and down. So I want to keep it in the most downward position when I spray this WD-40 on here, because I don't want the spray to get on that shaft. So I'll just do very gentle spray. Whoop. Just a little more on this side. And I'm gonna kind of just rub that in. And this WD-40 is gonna kind of leave a film on your reel, which lets the water bounce off of it. And it kind of just extends the life of your reel. It's harder for rust to form on it, and not to mention it gives it a kind of a glossy, smooth finishing touch, so it makes it look better too. You can also use like gun oil, works just fine, or and kind of leaves actually a nicer streak for a longer time. WD-40 kind of dries out in the air much quicker, but you know, whatever you have to work with. So there we go. Also, if you remember the gunk that's in here, I'm going to take a paper towel and get that out of there too. Remember how I said don't spray WD-40 on your fishing line? Well, there's a little spring in here and I want to get a little bit of WD-40 on it, so I'm gonna really carefully spray it in there, just like that. Tap it around and voila! It is looking good though, compared to how it was looking before. So the next thing that we want to do is add a little more grease into this. And normally I wouldn't be adding more grease into this reel because it spins real nice and it's smooth, and I think it doesn't have a problem, but for the sake of showing you guys, I thought I would do this. So in order to open your reel up, This part should spin out. Whoop, there it goes. And basically you just spin the handle backwards and it'll come right off. There she goes. 1, 2, 3, and then there's this forward screw here. So I'll take these out real quick. Now this front thing will come off. And you can see there's already grease on there. The grease looks good. It looks clean. Nice and blue. 3 screws left. 1, 2, and 3. Take those out right now. So I just noticed as I'm pulling this screw out right here, there's a couple sand crumbs along it. So this is why it's good to clean them once in a while, because sand does get into these little grooves. I have removed all 3 of these screws, and now this whole piece should in theory just come right off. So let's see here. Yep, it comes right off. Let's see how clean / dirty it is in here. You know, I will say it looks pretty spotless in here. There's grease on there. I don't see any sand or anything in there. But since we're here anyways, I might as well add a little bit of grease. For grease, you can pretty much use any kind of, if it says that it's resists water, inhibits corrosion, reduces bearing drag, that's pretty much what you're looking for with grease. So just give it a couple of little dabs. You know, just a tiny bit on there, a tiny bit in here, up in here. You can see the shaft up in there. I'm just going to get a tiny bit, just right up in there. Nothing crazy. And that's really all there is to it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just close it back up. Put this 3 screws back in. All right, boom, done. Now we can zoom out a bit here, and actually we're gonna wanna put this cover back on. I'm actually going to add just a touch of extra grease here. Slide the cover back on and screw that in. All right, kind of just reverse reel it in, and there we go. And then once that's in, you just screw the cap on the other side. Beautiful. It's smooth. I mean, it was smooth before, but it's got like a nice shiny gloss to the whole reel now that it's got some WD-40 on it. It's looking pretty sleek. We can put our the bail is opening nicely. Put our line back on. Oh, I'm excited to use this tomorrow. I want to show you guys the rod that I'm going to put this on, but before I show you the rod, let me show you the bait that I'm going to be tossing tomorrow, so you have an idea of how heavy of a bait I'm going to be tossing around. Tomorrow I'm going to be fishing all artificials, and you can see that these guys weigh about 1.5 ounces, maybe 2 ounces, slightly bigger jig heads. And the jig heads I'll be putting on these DOA. I'll also be putting the jig heads on these gulps. They're not super heavy. It's pretty light action fishing I'm going to do tomorrow, so it should be pretty good. So let's go over the rods that I was using and the ones that I'm going to use. So the ones that I was using. So this is the Penn Fierce. So this rod came with the Fierce. Yeah, this is the Penn Fierce reel, and this rod came with that reel, Fierce Graphite. Now, I have to say, I can't say too many bad things about the Penn rod because I've caught so many fish on it, but I've had to fix this eye, and it's actually really funny because here's my other, this is the Penn Spinfisher V. This one came with my Penn Spinfisher V 4500 reel. So these are both rod reel combos, and the cool thing about buying the combos is you pretty much pay the 70 or 80 bucks for the reel, and it comes with basically a free rod. So, I mean, you can't complain. You really can't. I'll show you what happened. This eye actually just broke last week, which is funny because this is the same eye that I had to repair on this one. You can see this is an aftermarket eye that I had put on there. This was not my best job, one of my first repairs ever, about 5 years ago. The Penn spinfisher, I bought this rod maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I forget. That's the day I was shopping with my ex-girlfriend. And this one I also had to put an aftermarket on. So these rods, they're great. I mean, the eyes aren't the best quality. They seem to break a lot on me. The funny thing is, I have my Daiwa rod, and this actually came in a rod reel combo too with the Daiwa reel that I had. That one ended up seizing up on me. But this is a nifty little two-piece. The thing I like about the two-piece is if I ever just want to grab something, you know, I used to fish on campus back when I was going to college and stuff. So this was a really easy rod that I could stick kind of in my backpack or something. It's convenient. I've caught a lot of fish on this, a lot of snapper down in the Keys. It's a very sensitive rod. I like this rod. It's fun to use, but I don't plan on using it tomorrow. But Daiwa, your reel didn't work out for me, but your rod did. I will say the Daiwa Tanacom 1000. I have my sword fishing video where I catch my very first swordfish on this rod reel. This is the Daiwa rod. The Saltiga. It's got that tip on it for deep dropping. It's got the bent V butt on it for the rod holders. And I really like this, so good job on that. I have a bunch of toadfish rods, and I really like these rods. Every rod that you buy, they lay out 10 square feet of oyster bed, which is supposed to clean like 500 gallons of water a day. So these are rods with a purpose, I guess you can say. But I have a few of these rods. I was actually just using this one. This is the one I took the reel off of originally. But this is the 7'2". I have also the 6'8", and then I have the real small one here, the 5'11", which is actually smaller than me. So yeah, these are the 3 rods. You can see one's really short. Then there's a medium, the 6'8", and then the really long one, the 7'2". I was kind of debating which one would be good to use on a paddleboard. Originally, I was thinking the really short one would be cool, because then when I'm creeping around really tight mangroves, or just in a tight spot around docks, this short rod would be great. But the short rod doesn't have as much action because it's a little stiffer of a rod compared to the action that you see on the 6'8". The 7'2" is slightly stiffer. You can tell that it's a bit thicker than the 6'8". And the 6'8" is just real thin, and it's not too tall of a rod. I want to get that action, especially since I'm using kind of light artificial lures. I really want that flick action on the tip. So I'm going to stick with the Toadfish 6'8" tomorrow on the paddleboard. I think that's the perfect rod. Alright, here's the Penn Battle 2, and I'm going to be putting that on this Toadfish rod. So the way these rods work is, in order to attach this, you just screw this up, which raises the whole thing. Once it's high enough, you just take your reel, put it in there, and then move it down. There we go. And go in the slot. And I'm going to show you something really cool feature about this rod here. If you look, there's a slot right here. So you can put your hook in there. So instead of putting your hooks, normally what you do is when you have a hook, sometimes you put it on the eye of your rod, which can break the eye. So they have this cool little slot there where you can stick your hook in. I'll show you how that works here in just a second. Alright, here's the final result. I have the Battle 2 Penn reel on the 6'8" toadfish. I think this is an epic combo for paddleboard fishing. I have my 30-pound Blue Power Pro, which I have going to about 3 feet of 30-pound mono leader. And normally I would use 20-pound leader, but I looked everywhere and I could only find 30-pound leader lines, so I just went with that. Tomorrow I'll start with the smaller size jig that I have, and I'll be putting these gulps on this jig. And that's basically the rod reel combo that I'm going to be using tomorrow. This rod is just super sensitive. I think I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to feel probably every strike with this. Just some good action fun. Just found this reel right here. This is, I think, about $17 or $24 in that price range, probably from Walmart. And I have not treated this reel any differently than these like $60 to $74 range reels. And you can't even turn. I just did it with 2 hands. It barely turns, and the drag on it is like very the drag's pretty much loose all the way, and it's really rough, and like it's just not smooth at all. I'm not trying to bash on cheap reels. If you don't have much money and you can only afford, you know, $30 for your entire rod reel setup, then go for the cheap reel. But I will tell you that it's, you know, even if you take good care of it, for some reason, I mean, I don't take super good care of my reels. They're getting splashed by saltwater the whole time I'm running offshore. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're buying a fishing pole to go fishing with, right? So it's gonna get salty and rained on. These mid-range reels are really good because if you want to step your game up to like a Shimano Stella and spend $1,000 on your reel, you know, there's obviously the high-end reels, and obviously if you plan on catching big tuna and stuff and wahoo, you know, it makes sense to have one of those more high-end reels. But if you're just looking for something to get started with, something to catch bass with, something that can still handle a good fight, catch big mutton snapper, catch grouper on these can pretty much, for the most part, handle just about any fish. So for the price range, I think these Penns are awesome reels. Next time someone asks me what reel I recommend, I'm just going to send them to this video. But I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about my reels that I didn't answer in this video, make sure you ask the questions. Let me know what kind of stuff you want to know, and I will maybe make a part 2 where I talk about whatever you guys are wondering about. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, because tomorrow I will be posting my fishing video where I go paddleboarding, and I'm going to use this rod and reel setup that we just built here. And yeah, hope to see you guys out there. And I'll make sure that video has a lot of good information in it too. So cheers everybody. Peace out.